I was actually formulating a game between Boxwalas and Babus. Concepts, context, and case. Once they get more demand, then we get more labor, more employment. Endogeneity is something determines within the system. Exogeneity is something determines outside the system. It's a very beautiful project. I can explain you what we did. Why a multinational company want to enter into a developing country. The game has to meet at one point called Memorandum of Understanding. So I was trying to test that what is a backward linkages and forward linkages. It was a dream for all Andhra people. How can we generate revenue from the cost center to a revenue generator? I take care of products, projects, and people. One thing I'll tell you, change is constant. This is where I call this entire thing as a digital economics.
Namaste. This is Srilata Shankar. In our leadership series talk, we have with us today Dr. Venugopal Jarugumalli. Dr. Venugopal, Namaste, and we are glad to have you with us today.
Thank you.
We can start with your career. I understand you did your graduation and went on to become an economist and then chose information technology. Can you please run us through your career?
Sure. First of all, thank you and namaste for welcoming to this kind of a series.
Our pleasure to have you.
Okay. So let me start with my education background. Okay. I have a very what you call it as I started my journey from a place where is no bus services till now, and today where I am here is quite an achievement, and it's all because of the education what I have. So I would like to mention about my education. I'm from APRJC Nagarjuna Sagar, where I did my +2 and then moved to SV University Tirupati for my graduation. That's in a different subject called Accounts, Economics, Statistics, and Mathematics was my core subject.
That's really interesting. Economics, mathematics, and today information technology.
Yes. So, and after that, I did my University of Hyderabad in econometrics and game theory. So that's my master's. Then I wrote an entrance for Institute for Social and Economic Change, which is a Bangalore based, which is basically an ICSR institute. And then I did my PhD from there. After that, I moved to ISB for my further education and worked as a consultant. But at ISB, I started I should also get into a corporate, where I had to start my journey. So throughout my entire career, one thing common was statistics and economics. Mm-hmm. So I chose statistics because that was a budding field. Okay. So when I initially started my jobs, the job roles were statistician and chief statistician, and then consultant kind of a thing. Then with my economics, I became a business analyst and business consultant. I started as a consultant of retail analytics economics, and afterwards I moved to different companies. I started with IRI, which is basically in information resourcing, which is on the what you call it as retail front, where we used to model the price promotion kind of an.
So is IRI a corporate company or is
it's a corporate company. It's also called a Symphony Group, which is the first venture capital group of working on that. IRI is information resourcing.
Okay.
That is the company where you get all the retail analytics started there.
Okay.
Then I moved to Satyam Computers.
So what made you take up economics and statistics? As a student, I've always run away from numbers. Yeah. Math was never my field.
Yeah.
What made you take up math, statistics, and economics? That's a wonderful combination.
Yeah. And accountancy.
And accountancy as well. Okay. All numbers.
Yes. So as I started, many of the Andhra guys who always choose an MPC and then they become an engineers. That's the destiny of most of the guys.
Engineers or medicine?
Engineers, basically. MPC studies for engineering.
Right.
And if you are not an engineer, you don't get any place in anyone's house or anything.
Oh, for marriage.
Yeah, anything. Forget about marriage, forget about anything. Mathematics and physics and chemistry was that. But I was socially inclined because of my father. He had a lot of influence on me. So my father used to be a school teacher,
Okay.
and then he always taught me the social problems, and then he brought up to me to that, and he was expecting me to solve some of his dreams.
All right.
So I started mathematics and economics and commerce as my plus two subjects. Then I continued my graduation with mathematics, accountancy, and statistics and economics. So
But I was a commerce student as well. But we don't have this combination of
yeah,
maths
that,
and
that was
accountancy.
actually an what to say, like no, kind of a blessing for me being an SV University student. I think those groups are not exist nowadays.
Right.
But when I studied, it was one of the wonderful subject. And I have audited all mathematics and computer sciences. I had a very good privilege of studying in that.
So what do you
college.
mean by you had audited? What do you mean
So
by that? Can
we
you
had
elaborate?
yes, I can tell you. We have a tuitions where you can go and attend the mathematics tuitions. And
Sure.
so I'm from a very small town like Kavali in Nellore district. So that town, whatever they teach in college, is almost taught in tuitions. So I audited tuitions. I had a privilege of attending the computer science and everything. So at my graduation level itself, I completed PG diploma in computer applications from
Okay.
Nehru Kendra.
Okay.
So that's where my thing. And then being a Telugu guy, like now it's there in our DNA to code. So that's
To
how
code.
I
Wonderful.
so that's how I learned coding.
All right.
And
You are a PhD holder. What is the subject that you chose, and
Yeah.
why did you want to do PhD?
yes, I'll tell you that actually. So I studied my up to my graduation in my local language, Telugu medium, which gave me a lot of understanding of a subject and lot of understanding and the concepts of it. So I always, from the beginning, I used to have CCC approach: concepts, context, and case. So this is
Context, concept, and case. That's
Yes.
wonderful.
So these are the three things which I always followed from my education. That's because of my father being a teacher, and then
Sure.
he indulged me to do that. After doing that, then I took up economics as my major and statistics and game theory as my core subjects
Okay.
in my post graduation.
Okay.
At the time of post graduation, like no, we had that time all this high tech city and everything open. So a lot of people are going to campus placements and all.
Right.
Even I got selected in campus placement for an ICICI bank, which used to offer me a good package. But at the same time, what happened? So I met one of my professors, said like, sir, I cleared this. Then he said, he wrote DR in front of my name, and he said like, I
Doctor.
want to see this. So he was the one who motivated it. I have to mention his name. Is Dr. VNS Madhuri. Is no more, but I am here because of his blessings.
I'm sure.
So then I wrote an entrance exam for ISEC, which is Institute for Social and Economic Change, which is started by none other than V.K.R.V. Rao, which is actually have a lot of genesis of London School of Economics and Delhi School of Economics kind of a stuff.
Sure.
So to clear an entrance, it is very difficult. So I cleared that entrance, and then I entered into that institute. So for me, the circumstances are different
Sure.
because I studied my English medium only from my post graduation,
Okay.
then my PhD. So
What was the thesis?
Yes, I'll like to explain about my thesis. My thesis was something like no, any multinational companies would like to enter into a country like a developing country like India. So it's actually why a multinational company want to enter into a developing country. So I found a game theory there. So it's basically a game between a multinational company and a developing country.
Okay.
So multinational company will come with its own objectives, and developing country will come up with own objectives.
Right.
So what happens here is the game has to meet at one point called memorandum of understanding, where both the conditions meet together.
Right.
So that is where we have to derive a game and find out when the multinational company and a developing nation can come together and form a minimal acceptable conditions.
Sure.
So this is actually two kind of conditions. There are necessary conditions and sufficient conditions. So for a developing country, the objectives are basically it needs to increase its employment and economic value addition, and then export growth and other stuff. Okay, so in this entire process, multinations always comes to enhance its market growth
Right.
and reduce its cost. So this is actually a game I formed, Nash equilibrium kind of a game. Then we formulated that game, and then I have formulated a game theory there. Then I proved that with an econometric and statistical analysis by collecting data. So what is the minimal
The
access?
data that you collected was for India or across?
It's only for India.
Okay.
So that is only for passenger car segment. So that's why my automobile industry thing has come up. So I was actually formulating a game between boxwalas and babus, which is basically boxwalas are the MNCs and babus are basically
Bureaucrats.
No, politicians or bureaucrats. So the first objective here is to find under what minimal acceptable conditions both can come to a conclusion.
Right.
Once they come to conclusion, whether the investment which is coming from outside,
It's worthwhile.
is it in market seeking or an kind of a labor intensive in nature?
Okay.
So I would like to check that. So then I took the data and then I found it. So the initial is was market condition, and then I want to further get into what kind of an backward linkages and forward linkages it is creating.
Can you elaborate that?
Sure. Backward linkages are something like, if any multinational company comes, so if it uses all the components from a country like India, so all our small and medium sectors will use that
Sectors across industries.
across industries. For example, any car company comes, it requires more than 300 to 500 parts.
Right.
And then it has a demand created for these components.
So they're in manufacturing sector.
They are in manufacturing. So once they get a more demand, then we get a more labor, more employment. And once you get a more employment, then you get an economy added.
Right.
So that's a backward linkages.
Sure.
Forward linkages are that once a company comes, it opens a nice showrooms and get all white collared people get jobs there. So they go and then join as a salesman or business executives and all. So I was trying to test that what is a backward linkages
Sure.
and forward linkages.
Sure.
And this entire thing, there is a policy gamut. So our industrial policy, starting from the beginning, historically, how does this policy is changing over a period of time? If the policy is like, there is again a concept called endogeneity and exogeneity. Endogeneity is something determines within the system. Exogeneity is something determines outside the system. So if there is an endogeneity, so there should be an adjustments, ladly kind of a relationship. If it is an exogeneity, the shocks come from outside.
Meaning?
Shock is like, for example, COVID is a shock.
Okay.
Okay, or something like, the policy decisions which happens of industry, the demonetization is a shock. So this kind of an shocks comes from outside the system, which is basically done by our government policies.
Right.
So I was trying to understand this entire thing, and then I submitted my thesis. And I'll tell you, I took only 3 years for submitting my thesis, and then I got awarded.
But that's wonderful because you finished your thesis in 3 years,
Yeah.
which is probably a stipulated period of time. Many people finish their
Yes,
thesis,
yeah.
but in your case, you had to collect data across the country, and India is a large country by itself.
Yeah.
How did you go about that?
Yes, I had a fellowship, so I used that fellowship, and also I used to be a paper boy. So my guide used to call me as a paper boy because I presented a lot of research papers
Sure.
across the country. So wherever there is a data, I used to go there. In fact, I
So
went
research in economics or econometrics?
to research in economics, but mostly the tools and techniques are from econometrics.
Sure.
And game theory is my basic foundation.
So is the game theory that you developed, if I'm right, you developed the game theory, is it applicable in India across states?
Definitely. I'll tell you, I don't want to quote a major automobile industry because which was in a Bangalore.
Sure.
So for that automobile industry, I can tell you about what government has given in incentives. So government has given in 432 acres of land
Wonderful.
with 18 years of sales tax duty.
Using that game theory.
Yes.
Okay.
18 years of sales tax exemption and 14 years of electricity duty free has given to a company to come. But in turn, it has created only 2,000 employment. So now there is a cost benefit analysis which you have to refer.
Right.
So how much of cost the country is foregoing and how much of the benefits internet is getting.
All right.
So that is the logic. So for that, so every country will attract. What happens when a country goes for any multinations? It's basically a game between states.
Correct.
So every state will come and announce that
Want to take,
you come to my state, I'll
right.
give you this much of incentives and all.
Right.
So what happens? It is again a positive and negative attitude. So if you ask me in long term, everything leads to a good and development. But in short term, if the state's economic conditions are poor and pathetic, then you see a lot of issues and all.
Plus political issues as
That's
well.
what I mean to say. That's why I mentioned it as game between Babus and Boxwalas.
Right. But in cases like Nano, for example, they wanted to set up a plant in Bengal, but for various political reasons, they did not allow Ratan Tata to do it. And then they chose Gujarat. So what exactly happens over there?
So I think that gets into a political discussion, but I can correct it. So what happens if you look at almost all the automobile companies which has entered into in India, everything has come out within two kind of modes. The first is basically when they are entering, they choose a joint venture mode.
Okay.
So that was our policies then.
Right.
So there is no 100% whole subsidiary which entered. So when they are coming like that, most of the domestic companies has basically had a partnership or joint venture with these companies, and then they started this.
Okay.
So whereas Tata is a whole subsidiary of India which has its own thing set up in India, they were trying to set it up. So then what happens? It's a political issue.
Right.
Okay. So they basically, whatever I just said, incentivize and other things. There was a problem, and then they went.
He moved to Gujarat.
Yeah.
All right.
So again, there is another theory called convergence and divergence between different states. So these are the public economics, which is my interest actually.
Sure. You then went on to do your course in ISB. What was the course?
No, I was actually selected as a consultant for ISB because ISB, all the faculties used to come from outside.
Right.
And then they were looking for a bright PhD guys who can actually help the students to get into their education. So kind of an teaching assistant and research assistant kind of a shape.
Okay.
So I went to do that, and then my aim is to complete postdoctorate from there.
Okay.
So, but some of the professors who come from abroad, they said like, they talked to me and said like, you have been studying only in India. Why don't you have a foreign degree? Because that's a passion. So all your degrees are from India. I was PhD when I was 27. Okay.
Oh, wonderful.
So then they said like, you have to go to some other place and do your PhD. So that triggered me. Okay. Then I wrote. I started writing some proposals to
various countries,
external universities and all. Then again, middle class family melody started. So I have to get into my family thing, and then I have to go to a corporate job to feed my family. So that's how I went into a corporate.
So let's talk about your corporate journey now.
Sure.
Which company, after your PhD, which company did you join?
I joined a company called IRI. So in IRI, I started to work as a retail analytical consultant.
Okay.
So what we used to do is we used to have some models which is pre-built. Then I just need to change some of the parameters and then look at the blue screens and green screens running.
And after IRI, which company did you work on?
Then that is the time I was actually not happy with the kind of work I'm doing.
Right.
Because there was an egoistic behavior, right? I'm a PhD, I run so many models. So
Why am I doing this job?
why am I looking at the screen and wasting my time?
Right.
So I was not happy there. And then there was I went and attended a conference in Bangalore. There was a gentleman sitting next to me. He was looking at me. I was very enthusiastic in writing all the things. He asked me one question like, "Where are you from?" I said, "Where are you working?" I said, "I'm from so and so company." Then immediately he said like, "Are you still with the company or you resigned?" I said, "Yes, sir, I resigned it." Then he also said, "I was working there earlier," and then I put down my papers. Then he offered me his visiting card. Then I went there. It was Satyam Computers.
Okay.
It was a dream for all Andhra people. Okay. Back then. So I went and joined there. So I worked with Satyam Computers as an SME, subject matter expert. So whatever I learned in the pre-built model, I used to re-engineer stuff.
Okay.
So I used to understand what was this built models and all. That re-engineering helped me to come and build a lot of stuff in Satyam Computers. So I'm actually a first employee in KPO. They have this thing called, then it was Satyam KPO Services.
It was Nipuna, right?
Nipuna, then Satyam KPO. I joined when it was Satyam KPO. Nipuna was a BPO, then KPO.
Okay.
Then I was first employee to join there, and then we started building around 100 plus employees there.
Sure.
So what I used to do is I had a different projects. The first project was within chocolate company. So we started building their price promotions and market mix models.
Okay.
Then I went to, they sent me to New York to work with an pharma giant. So where we were trying to build an market mix modeling and trying to understand. It's a very beautiful project. I can explain you what we did because Satyam is no more, but I have to tell the kind of work what we have done.
Sure.
So the first and foremost thing was that was actually a global pharmaceutical company. So in that company, they have 15 to 16 brands, and each and every brand used to get a market mix. So they used to advertise. So what we did was we tried to find out that market data, and then we used to analyze that and try to find out what is an ROI of each and every marketing campaign. Actually, we get in different agents who collects the data.
Okay.
So we get in data from an marketing campaigns like ad campaigns and ad agencies, and we also get in data from speaker data program. Like if any speaker comes and then gives a seminar about it,
Right.
how many people has attended. So these are all basically which is an inputs,
Right.
but output is how many RXs you wrote.
What is RX?
RX is basically number of prescriptions.
Okay.
So how many prescriptions you wrote. So we used to correlate number of prescriptions versus number of efforts they have done. Like you have an print, you have an advertising from an internet. We used to have a radio advertising,
Sure.
and we used to have this speaker data, and we also have an sales interaction. A sales guy comes and spends the time with the doctor. We call it as a detailing term.
Okay. As a layman, a prescription, he would understand it's only from a doctor's
Yes.
point of view.
Yeah.
What do you mean by prescription?
So prescription is, for example, in the country like US, you don't get an OTC medicine, over the counter.
Over the counter. Okay.
So you have to get a prescription from the person, and then you have to collect it. It was so organized way back in 2006, 2007 time.
Yeah.
So that prescription has to be produced, and then they have to collect it.
Okay.
So each and every prescription has an doctor's registration number.
Okay.
So they track that doctor's registration and prescription. Then they will buy from these stores. So all the data will be digitally recorded.
All right.
So we used to have that prescription data details.
Okay. Moving on from your Satyam Computer journey, which was the next company that you worked with?
I used to work for clients like KPMG and this thing. It's called EVS,
Okay.
Evaluate Serve in Gurgaon.
Okay.
So I moved all the way from Hyderabad to Gurgaon. That is where I was working, and then I worked for an British Telecom, and then I worked for a lot of other clients. So British Telecom was mainly an kind of an telecommunication company. There was a lot of churn happening that time. So they're shifting from landline to the mobile phones, wheel phones kind of stuff. So we were trying to build and churn models and predicting what was the behavior of the people, why they're churning kind of thing. Then I also worked for a lot of banks, again trying to understand customer segmentation, why the
When you said you work for banks, you were working as a client with them.
banks were our clients.
Clients, right.
So we were actually service providers, but this was a knowledge work.
Sure.
So I can tell you at one point here, all my works, what helped me is my statistics and my economic analysis. So these are the two things which kept me. So for me, any field, I quickly catch up, any domain, but the analysis procedure is same. So that's how we are trying to work out.
All right.
So I worked there. After that, I had some issues with my family. So my father and mother was not well. So I had to come back to
Hyderabad.
South. So I moved to a company called HP. So HP was starting something called Global Analytics. So I joined in HP. I was leading in quality and warranty analytics division there. So I can again say like HP, I did a lot of analysis work, which is basically on like we were designing in warranty and then we went up to predicting the warranty frauds. So HP used to be an HP at those days. We had 3 different product lines. We have our PCs, we have printers, we have the servers.
Okay.
So we used to predict the warranty for
Each of these.
So and then HP services were there, which are now a DXC kind of stuff. So when we built this entire scenario, we were trying to understand how to build a warranty. That is where the competitive intelligence has come. So if what are the competitors offering versus what we are offering. So we used to do all the spider chart analysis and all. So from HP onwards, I started to build as a team and team management, everything has come. And then once you have built a warranty product, how does that warranty is taken? Like, for example, people buy the product, but they don't buy the warranty. So warranty is basically cost to the company. So what we started is we came up with some logics and then started to find out something like upselling and cross-selling models. So where we used to identify the enterprise customers and sell it. And it has
Market
B2B.
segment as well?
Yeah. It's a B2B kind of stuff. And B2C scenario is very difficult.
Sure.
In a B2C scenario, we will understand the customers, but we don't have their proper numbers and all. So what we used to do is when the customer used to call us, so that time we used to identify that customer details and collect that information, and then we used to backtrack him and try to sell our products. So that's how we generated a lot of revenue from that upselling and cross-selling.
Okay. And currently you're working for a company called ZF.
Yes.
Can you please talk about that?
Yes. Before this, I just want to give a couple of other examples.
Sure.
So after my HP, then I moved to a company called Cisco, which is again a global giant. So Cisco, again, I started as a strategy head for a product called WebEx. So where we were trying to understand a lot of cost push to sales push kind of thing.
Okay.
So we changed the center from a cost to which is basically a cost center to a profit center or revenue center. So what happens is Cisco used to give this product. So whenever they used to call the customer services and all, customer service is always a cost to the company. How can we generate revenue from the cost center to a revenue center? So that's where what we have done is, I think it's way back now, we are talking about all Gen AI and all the stuff.
Right.
So when those days, when the data itself is not a big data kind of a stuff, what we used to do there is, we used to basically understand this cost details and try to analyze that cost details, like the customer call details and all. From there, we used to identify the same analogy what I used in HP, which is upselling and cross-selling. So also we used to understand the customer churn behavior and try to do that. I can tell you one strategy which we implemented. If we have an enterprise customer, legacy customers we call them, those customers will have a details of they might have registered our product and not using it, but they will be paying it. So what we used to do is we have bought a concept called consumption economics. So we used to identify the customers who are not using our product,
Okay.
and then we used to reach out to the customers and say, hey, you registered with us with 100 licenses, but your actual capacity is only 30 to 40. So why don't you do one thing? I will downgrade your licenses fees to 50. Okay. If you want anything, we'll give you more. So this is the kind of a strategy.
So they save on the cost.
Yes.
Okay.
So that is a cost to the customer from our side, and also we get a recurring revenue.
Right.
So we talk about revenue economics there, consumption economics there, and loyalty economics.
Okay.
So that's how my economists are still alive.
Okay.
Then I moved to the current company, ZF. ZF, I'm actually working on manufacturing analytics. So I'm also heading the AI product side. We build a lot of AI products. When I say AI products, it's basically a product is different from a project. Project is customer have a requirement and then he gives us. Product is something like we create our own
Right.
ideas and then we basically
Sell it to
sell to them. So I take care of products, projects, and people.
All right. So the career that you've spanned for the last few decades, what do you tell a student how he can shape his career?
Yeah. So one thing I'll tell you, change is constant. Okay. Change is a constant. Every day you need to change it. And to keep that change, you have to update your knowledge. You have to learn so many things. Okay. And learning by doing is another thing. You always need to constantly update your knowledge. I'll tell you, when I started my career of what you call it as statistics or analytics, or now you call it as AI or Gen AI, whatever it may be, we used to use a floppy disks. Okay. And if one floppy disk gets a virus, so there are a lot of days where I cried.
Right.
Because I wrote a program and then that program went for an
You had to just throw it in the dustbin.
I don't have a backup.
Backup.
Then the floppy disk has come to an CDs, then it has come to an hard disks. Now you have everything in cloud. You have multiple backups.
Right.
So if you ask me, I'm not a techie, but as an economist, I lead a lot of engineers who are world-class engineers. Okay, that's a good learning for me. But what happens here is the technology is changing over a period of time. You yourself need to keep update with that. So if
You need to adapt yourself.
Yeah, if you are not for that adaptation, you are out.
You become obsolete.
Yeah.
So what is the difference between market research
Yeah.
and economic research, statistic research, etc.?
So if you ask me, market research is kind of an research where we try to understand the dynamics of market and try to understand what all the intelligence you are having it. So if you ask me, a market research consists of MI and CI.
MI and?
CI, market
Okay.
intelligence and competitor intelligence.
Okay.
Okay. So, and also you do a lot of research intelligence. Basically, you conduct surveys and then do that. So these are the three things which comes there. Market intelligence, where you try to understand what is your product movement, what were your competitors are doing, how much of you can price, how much you can, what are the cannibalization effects of your product, and what are the, I always mentioned about the endogeneity and exogeneity, right? What are the external forces which is hitting your product? So that kind of a thing. And in the competitive intelligence, you need to understand your competitors' moves. It's again a game theory strategy.
Right.
Okay. So how do your competitors are moving? How much they are pricing? What is your competitors' new offerings? How much discounts they are doing it? And then there is a research intelligence where you try to understand the primary research, or now you call it as the digital research, whatever it may be. So you try to reach out to your customers in a sample size and try to understand how each and every customer is trying to understand your dynamics of product and all. So economic research another way is like it's again a macroeconomic and microeconomic research. Macroeconomic research is how your macroeconomic parameters are changing. Like you have an inflation, you have an GDP, and you have something like external shocks coming.
Right.
Your FII is flowing, FDI is flowing, all these things are flowing it. So you have to watch that. So if you don't understand any of this intelligence correctly, you are out from the system.
Right. So how does a student who's wanting to take economics or
Yeah.
econometrics,
Yeah.
but doesn't have a clue at all as to how he, let's say, 11th or 12th class student
Yes.
who, seeing your video, wants to take up economics or econometrics, but doesn't have a clue as to how he needs to shape his career? What are the tips that you would give him?
See, I'll tell you, there is always a pure science versus applied sciences. The pure science is something like physics, economics, and all those things are pure science. I always take economics as a science because it also gets a Nobel Prize.
Right.
Okay. See, the applied sciences are something like the management kind of a thing. So what happens? It becomes like master of everything, and then
Jack of none.
Jack
Jack
of-
of all trades, master of none.
master of nothing. But management is also science. It has different branches and all. If you study an applied science, it will definitely take you to a different destiny. But your pure sciences up to certain graduation level will definitely master your skills at an applied level.
Right.
So if you ask me what economics they have to study is, economics is also changing its scope.
Sure.
So when we used to study, I'll tell my experience in my University of Hyderabad days. When all my classmates, I have a very good bunch
Team.
of classmates who has come from all over the globe.
Right.
Okay. So my professor was asking what book you studied, and all. Very innocently I raised my hand. I said like technical series test paper. Everyone laughed at me. The same guy at the end of my fourth semester, I was the topper.
Sure.
So now I can tell some 100 to 500 books. What is that? So it's all because of you have to put effort, and you have to understand the concepts, and you have to always understand the context, and you have to put that in a place, and then you have to also practice the code to their
Yeah,
example.
I agree with you because my parents inculcated the habit of reading right from my second or third standard. And I would always say this, that reading books is the shortest way to knowledge.
Yeah.
And you can read plethora of books, plethora of genres. So even today I read at least 15, 20 minutes, if not more. And that's become a habit every day. For a student who's wanting to build his career, and like I earlier said, he's confused as to which path he needs to take, whether it is HR, finance, IT, engineering student as well. For an engineering student, there is EEE, computer science, information technology, ECE, civil engineering. So what are the options? The options are plenty, but what do you tell or what will you guide them as?
So if you ask me, whatever the field they take, I want them to be in excel in that, because so it's everything there is an opportunity. Like that opportunity, they have to go and understand it. But the main problem with most of the engineering or MBA or BBA student is, after the second year, they never listen to the concepts in third year. They always will hunt on jobs. Don't look for jobs. You look for a career, right? Careers are more oriented than jobs. Jobs, if you are looking for a job and then you want to get in salary and then you are out from the system, even in a job, if you are not learning, machines will eat you one day, right? So you have to be ever learning.
Constantly learning, upskilling and
So
reskilling.
I always say it's like happy learning.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So this is basically which will help. That's my.
I agree with you because you and me come from a different generation altogether. But today's youngsters want everything fast paced.
Yes.
They want. I remember one of the candidates who came in for an interview. and he said he had 11 months experience. Believe me, it was just 11 months. And he said he wants to become a team manager. I said, 11 months? He said, yes, ma'am, 11 months.
Yeah.
This generation wants everything fast paced. Everything a 2-minute Maggi noodles.
Maggi noodles.
So what would you give? What would you tell them, and what they should not do?
So first of all, I think I face this every day in my tech interviews or anything. The people will come and then they want to change everything. The Rome is built so many years back. They can't deconstruct and then reconstruct the things within the same span. And then they lose their attention span is very less.
Very short, exactly.
And then they lose interest very
quickly.
So I think for that, an experience is one thing. But what happens is they don't have a patience to listen also. Right? So you should always challenge them as a senior guys. You should always encourage them by giving a small tasks, and then that encouragement has to be passionate enough, and then they have to show the passion. But I'm not asking everyone to do PhDs, but at least they have to excel in the masters. They have to become more education. For example, after my PhD, I'm still doing a lot of courses from Coursera. Like I have some dreams. Like now, I was actually thinking to do some foreign degrees and all, which was not happened or which was not completed because of certain reasons. But I still go to the digital world and then
absolutely. In fact, during the COVID, and I'm doing my MA journalism now. So there's no full stop to education or full stop to learning. I plan to do my MA psychology as well. I hope to complete it, and I want to do my PhD as well. So I completely agree with you that learning has to be constant and does not complete or does not put a full stop after your graduation or a post graduation. Students are very confused. They are having fire in the belly, while some students have extreme fantastic clarity. They're also confused. This also leads to stress. We've all seen a lot of mental stress. Youngsters, your 21-year-olds, 23-year-olds are going through a lot of mental stress, which was alien to you and me. So what is the advice that you will give them?
Expectations, rational expectations from both sides, endogenous and exogenous.
Absolutely.
So endogenous is your own expectations, and don't keep expectations very, very high. You can have a goal and you try to attempt it, but if you feel stress means you have to get into a lot of expectations. There's a conflict between expectations and realizations. So that's why I call it as a rational expectations. And then the second thing is explicit or exogenous, the outside factors. Okay? They come up with their own theories, they come up with their own passions. Like, for example, I can tell you, coming from a small town boy or small village boy, my father was and my mother was asking always, my mother used to look at the those days that every Wednesday you used to get the column of jobs and all. My mother used to ask which job you will get into this. So my father used to say that my entire life I have sacrificed for you. You don't get stress. So I used to take that clues from my father and developed it. So I suggest the expectations has to be kept and you leave to them. Everyone has their own skills. Right? Anyone can live in this world. So they can come up. If not this, tomorrow you can do that. Right?
They should also understand their capabilities. Build on those capabilities. It's good to be inspired by people, but nobody else is your competitor except you yourself. I keep saying this.
That's true. I'll tell you, the people who are coming and learning the analytics or some of these things, I always feel very funny about them. For example, everyone started learning about, there is an engineering has come up in AI in data science or engineering in data science and AI. So this is the new branches are coming. The traditional branches are dying. Because people are not going there. I think if you remember when I started, the entire Amirpet used to be filled with Java.
Right.
So The entire Amirpet is to fill with some other
.NET, etc.
.NET and all. So what happened? It all become dinosaurs over a period. So definitely you can have a skills and you have to learn the skills. These skills you may not learn as a complete degree. You can learn these skills on your own, right? You don't need to do a degree for that.
Sure.
Okay.
You're currently working on AI and ML. What is the synergy between economics, statistics, AI, and ML?
Yeah, this is where I call this entire thing as a digital economics.
Okay.
See, what happens is you get a data. The data, it's nothing but information, right? You have one information, and that information has to be harnessed and then try to become an insight.
Okay.
That's the whole thing. Very simple thing. So this information, whatever we are having, has grown up multifold. So you have a digitalization in place where you get an information in different points and different ticks. So like even seconds has become every 20 ticks.
Okay.
So this agility of information has to be harnessed and then put it back into some insights.
Okay.
That insights has to use for decision making. So the whole journey here is how to capture this data, which is coming in very, very fast and agility move. That data, whatever you are capturing, how you are transforming it, and how you are putting that transformation into an algorithms, and how that algorithms are basically helping you to generate insights, how that insights has been used for your decision making.
Okay.
This is the whole story.
So you would say it's a branch, extended branch of statistics, economics, and AI.
Yeah, this transformation journey, we require technology, we require tools, we require techniques, we require everything. But the whole journey is simple, right? You have an information, you have to transform that information into an insights. That insights has to be used for decision making.
All right. So after you explain the synergy between AI, statistics, and mathematics, for an engineering student who's taken up Java or .NET or SAP, how can he get into AI or ML or data science? That's question one. Second question is, how do support staff, your HR, admin, finance, market research, etc., or the networking staff, can, not necessarily the networking, but especially HR, admin, and finance, get into data science? Is there any opportunity at all while I still want to continue with my HR role?
So I think the first question, the people who learn Java or who learn this, I always ask this engineers who are comes to me for interaction. I say like, you want to become a fitter or you want to become an engineer? Okay. So if you ask me, they are only tools. Okay. The tools are needed, but an engineering is basically a holistic picture.
Sure.
So you need to have different tools and different techniques. So that has to be with you. Okay. And as I said, always insist on, you need to change it. Like for example, today Java is now replacing with Python. And now Python will get replaced with, I think if I'm not wrong, Julia is another one which is sitting back. So like that, it is all changing.
So you need to constantly learn.
Constantly learn. But if you learn the fundamentals, how the code works,
then adapting to any technology is easy.
Yes. So I always say something like C, 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 and TN.
Okay.
The first C is basically concept. The second C is basically context. The third C is basically the case. And fourth is a code. And TN is for tool neutrality.
What is tool neutrality?
Yeah. Tool neutrality is something like the tool which are you using today might change tomorrow.
Okay.
Right? But you should be, the concepts will remain same. Context will remain. And then the context will remain. The neutrality is something like which basically changes.
So as a HR person myself.
Yeah, my second answer is, So how does the support staff has to get adapted to this? So the support staff, which are good in their own functional knowledge, has to think about the decision making capabilities in a rapid environment. So they have to adapt towards the tools and techniques. If they are not doing it on their own, at least they need to have an analogy
Right.
or critical thinking how to do it.
Right.
They can still concentrate on their main jobs, but they can take the support of the tools and techniques which will help them. So for an engineer, the tools and techniques has to be neutral. They have to be concentrate on this concepts and this thing. Whereas this guys, the other support staff, has to change their without changing their functions. They can actually augment these
Right.
tools, and then they can see what happens is everything is, as you rightly said, 2 minutes noodles, right? If I have seen my people also, they raise a request and then immediately they send me an email, sir, I raised a request, can you please approve it? So you have only one work, I have 52 people, I am doing so many things, but I have to do that. So I have to be on top of that. So those kind of an decision making has to be very agile and fast. And you have to use an intelligence always to overcome these things. So again, for them also, if you are not adapting, you will become another Hindustan Motors.
Right. What is the 3 advice or 3 pointers that you will give a young student, both engineering and management student?
See, the first and foremost thing is you have to understand the concepts. Okay?
Whichever stream you've taken.
Whichever stream, I respect all the streams. Okay, whichever stream you have taken, the conceptual clarity should be perfect. Once you have conceptual clarity, then that concepts has to get reminded and remind and recall.
Right.
Okay, you should develop that capability of, you call everything as a reciting kind of thing, right? Then the third is basically constantly learn. 70 to 80% of the people are like that, but what we have to do is as an elders or as an mentors, we have to create that culture. Like marks is not an indicator of your knowledge. Your knowledge is something, when something is asked, you have to recall it. Okay? If you don't recall, if you don't remember it, then you are out from the system.
Right. Moving on to your personal interests, what are your various personal interests that you have?
See, my personal interest, if you ask me, I'm not saying that I achieved the highest thing in corporate life or something. So that's my professional goal. That will come one day, right? So after speaking so much, I can't be very hungry for my next roles or something. But if you ask me, my pursuit of happiness, now I want to do a lot of research on something like digital public goods. Okay, with the new generative AI kind of stuff, there's a lot of things which is getting disruptive in market. For example, I don't want to take the brand. Okay, like there is one brand which has come. We call that brand as an Basmaster of industry.
Okay.
It killed so many form factors. It killed the form factor of an tape recorder. It killed the form factor of an photo cameras. It killed the form factor of a watches. It killed the form factor of a music industry, and it killed the form factor of an computers and all. I think you
music industry is almost dead now.
Yeah, that's what.
Because you don't see tapes, you don't see CDs anymore at all.
Yeah. So it killed so many industries. So this is called disruption. So what happens with the new generative AI? Any context can be modified, or anything can be modified with the prompting and all. So what will happen here? This kind of an changes whatever we are getting, that changes has to be monitored. This becomes a digital public good. Like I'll just give an example of a public good. Public good is like a public park. Everyone want to maximum utilize it, but no one want to contribute it, or no one want to pay the utility factor of it.
Okay.
Okay. But The same thing when it comes to digitally, it is easily accessible to everyone's hand.
Right.
So if you put one cryptic post in an Twitter or in an Facebook,
Social media.
okay, so that can be used by anyone, right?
Mm.
So you'll get a lot of forwards and everything. People really don't read it.
Absolutely.
They don't have a patience to read also.
Absolutely.
They'll just forward it, click forward kind of thing. So that public goods are basically in a way good and in a way bad. Okay. So I'm now working on something like who will bell the
Cat.
black cat in a dark room. Okay. So everyone want to basically
Put the blame on somebody else.
someone else, right? That's a digital public good. So I'm actually working on data governances of digital public goods and other stuff, and how to govern it. For example, in a public good, the same park example, the institutional mechanism comes like if you just put one security guard over there, everyone behaves perfectly, right? So that building that kind of an infrastructure in a physical good, which is possible, but in a digital good, it is not possible. That requires a lot of other people help us, moral responsibility, moral hazard, and all those things. I think I'm not a Baba or something like me who can preach all these things, but there should be some mechanism to come out.
Okay.
The second thing is, as I already mentioned, digital economics. I want to create this subject and then I want to take it forward. I want to create more resources into this kind of research.
Okay.
Apart from my research and my public interest, I'm more interested towards the policy implementations and trying to give and proper advice, not from the WhatsApp universities or something.
In your career as your, even including your PhD and your career in the economics, statistics, and today AI and ML, how much of the work that you have done is closely related to the government sector?
Okay, my PhD was completely for government sector. So in fact, my PhD has been quoted many places. And whenever I look out for a Nobel Prize, I think I always see if someone got a Nobel Prize where I have used their things. I feel very happy.
Right.
So I used something called when you have an oligopolistic structure of a market, and one firm is in government in that oligopolistic structure, and it dominates the other firms. Then that kind of a theory got a Nobel Prize in 2017.
Oh, wonderful.
So
was your name mentioned as well?
No. He has got that, but I use the same thing in my thesis.
Sure.
But I feel like always some of our ideas getting reflected. Okay. And also, I actually worked for a couple of my friends' thesis. Okay. So that thesis was something on participatory development. Like when you go for any kind of participation kind of a thing, how much you are contributing and all those things get reflected.
What do you mean by participation?
Participation
is it elections or is it what?
No, elections is one form of participation. If any kind of things like, for example, you talk about
policy making as well.
Yeah, for example, you talk about something like watershed development. Unless until the entire village people participated, that watershed development will never come out. So I'm currently working something on choosing not to drive electric.
Okay.
Why people are not using electric?
EVs.
Not EVs, electric mode. Okay. When they have an option.
Okay.
So that's another research area which I'm working on.
So what are the pain areas that you mentioned that you worked with the government closely?
Yeah.
What do you think are the pain areas? Question one. Question two is, how can they be more transparent in their policy making? Three is, what do you suggest the government should do or can do better?
Transparency is one thing, which is very, very difficult. You can't put everything transparent.
Right.
And people expect nowadays, because they're watching news, so they want everything to be transparent.
WhatsApp University?
Whatever it may be. People don't look at news. I think I still remember my father used to have his food at 9:30. He used to watch one news channel at 9 to 9:30, and that was the only news channel we used to have. But now what happens is, the moment everyone gets up, now you have an X Twitter and you have a Facebook, you have all these things, all
Right.
social media.
Right.
They look at it, and then there is no neutrality here.
Right.
So transparency is something like, now everyone interpret the transparency in some other way. Transparency is something, if you digitally align everything, when it's called trust. It's That's what we call it as a blockchain kind of a thing. If you try to put a blockchain kind of a scenario, the transparency has to be followed. Okay. The next important thing here is, you also asked me about how does the government has to change or something. See, governments always work for the people, okay? But the agents of the governments might be bureaucrats, or might be the policymakers, or might be the politicians, always work for their vested interest.
True.
So what we expect is, because you don't expect them to be very clean or something, because everyone is corrupt unless until you have a chance. Okay? You are non-corrupt only that you don't have a chance to corrupt.
Right.
Okay, so that's the human being. But a people can become a more moral hazard, and people can basically do that. But whatever I said, like, no, that utility function, they are maximizing everything
Okay.
towards the minimization of something.
Okay.
So if they can cut that maximization limit and then go to the realistic things, then itself is good.
All
You
right.
can't expect an 100% corruption free or something. At least 70 to 80% of transparency in what they're trying to do.
Sure.
The technology will definitely help with this. I think only thing is, people has to educate it more.
All right. Going back to your career, you
Yeah.
also mentioned that you're working on blockchain.
Yeah.
What's the difference between blockchain, AI, ML, and data science?
See, blockchain is something like, no, I just mentioned about creating a trust and creating an collusion between different things.
Okay.
But AI ML is basically one of the instrument making blockchain more effective.
Okay.
Okay, and data science is something, a discipline, okay, which can be used to understand all these things.
Sure.
Wherever you work, wherever you study, if you understand these concepts, you are safe. But branding institutions are branded because of the faculties and because of the research they come from. So that's the only thing. Otherwise, a student is capable of anything, but this is how they go. So your question is basically, how can they use these things, right?
Yes.
Like, for example, a blockchain technology of an HR person definitely can be used in selecting the candidate, right? So for example, you can come up with one application where they upload their CV. That CV has to be authenticated by,
In fact, AI has helped the HR recruitment division to a large extent.
Yeah.
How I'll say this is, earlier in the last maybe 5-6 years back also, I used to get 20, 30, 50 CVs,
Yeah.
and I would not know whether Venugopal has applied in the past or not. But today I just type Dr. Venugopal and it will give you all the results of
Yeah.
whether he's applied, when he's applied, whether it's a duplicate CV, etc. So in that context, it's helped.
yeah,
But
that is one way of that. But what happens here is, for example, in a blockchain, if one person is applying for a job, that person has to be authenticated by few other people.
Parameters.
Okay. No, few other people who are in these sources.
Okay.
So that authentication creates a trust.
Okay.
Okay, because you and he doesn't have to give lena dena kuch nahi.
Right.
But if he is authenticated, then you have some trust on it.
Okay.
So the first and foremost thing is, that kind of authentication and trust factor has to be created, and then everything can be traceable, right, from his education towards the end. What happens is, most of the CVs, what we are trying to do now is, it's more reactive in nature. Once we get a CV, we trust everything, and then we check, we do a background verifications and all after he's
Joins
into
the
the
company.
job. So that has to be more predictive in nature.
Okay.
That helps better.
Right. You yourself has worked or are working on blockchain, AI, ML, data science. So, does a young professional get an opportunity to work in all these sectors and all, I wouldn't say sectors, but all these technologies and emerging technologies which may come in the future?
Every, like for example, if you ask me, everything today is basically technology is moving fast. Like blockchain, AI, ML, and other these technologies, everyone has to be go through this kind of stuff.
Right.
And everyone has to prepare for these things. If you are not updated, so your robots will basically eat you. Okay.
So, are you saying people will not have the jobs?
No, people will definitely have a job. See, for example, I'll tell you, most of these technologies, as on today, everything goes with the prompting. Who has to give prompting?
Human.
Right. So that is how they have to be in the space.
Right.
If they don't,
So, you're saying, in a nutshell, people will not lose their jobs as long as they are upgraded and reskilled.
yes. So business intelligence, research intelligence, market intelligence, or artificial intelligence, anything will always help from a human intelligence.
Right. What's the difference between business intelligence and data intelligence?
See, I think both are like a same. Business intelligence is something if the business required any kind of an intelligence which should be data driven, it's become a business intelligence.
Right.
Like for example, you look at a report or you look at a product, that can be again reactive or proactive. Reactive or something like what happened in the past, you're looking at it. Proactive is something like what will happen in the future.
Okay.
You will look at it.
Okay.
And then prescriptive is something like what you have to take a decision.
All right.
Whereas data intelligence is basically how this data is intelligently helping it without any biases.
Going back to your personal interest, you also teach. Can you talk us through that?
See, I'm actually, as I said, like no, I am an assimilator and disseminator of knowledge. I always learn the new things and then try to understand. That basically personally helps me. If I'm teaching something like that's a new subject for me first, and then I become a confident, then I teach.
So, do you teach at colleges and universities?
I used to do that, but of late, after my health issues and other
Okay.
things, I stopped.
Okay.
But earlier, I used to do it. I used to go, I think I used to do it in 3 ways. The first way is I used to go to government places and then the rural places. I used to encourage people to do that. I tried many times, but I miserably failed. But I am not stopping it. I go to government places. I use this chalkboard, and I also teach at certain very high level institutions where I will learn from those students and then try to disseminate that learning with the rural people. I'm
Right.
like a translator between like elite and poor.
All right. Your interest also is digital economics
Yeah.
and rural economics.
Yeah.
Can you throw light on those?
Sure. Digital economics, as I explained, like no. For example, if I want to explain you about the commerce industry today, so earlier your industry, commerce industry is like e-commerce, something like you have something on website and you need to do your research and picking up.
Okay.
But in a digital world, you follow someone, right? It's like a Duesenberry effect in economics. You follow someone, if that one is doing it, and then you want to follow it. Like for example, I can give an example of my own kid. She always follows some people, and she always wants to take their bags or something. So that kind of an effect she gets.
Okay.
So it's all because of digital following. So it's basically in your in the physical world of an commerce or something, you have a market and you have an customers.
Okay.
The bridge between market and customers, you have different other things will come and like they will come to an brick and mortar stores and then purchase it and all.
Okay.
But in a digital world, and then you have a sales agents. Okay, your sales agents are like Insta, Facebook, or
Right.
some influencers, and your market is basically require the trends of these people who are buying from these guys, and you have an manufacturers. If you put everything in a digital platform, right, from manufacturers to the customers, it goes hand in hand.
It goes into one basket.
One basket. All your transactions are digitally inclined. So that's called digital economics.
All right.
Okay. So all your economics, like let's say market mechanism is that. Similarly, you talk about manufacturing. In the manufacturing, there is a mission, and mission gives a lot of sensors. I'm not talking about these sensors are new or something.
Right.
From dated back of industrial 3.0 itself, all these sensors has come. That decisions has to be driven from this. Now all the data is available. You put this information together and then go back.
All right.
So all these things, I want, this is all nothing but theory of information, asymmetric information, and concrete information, and the information flow, how much of speed and agility it takes, and how accurately it goes.
All right.
If you put everything together, it's basically a digital economics. That's a subject which I'm
Passionate about.
no, which I have created on my own, and then I'm working on it. In rural economics, see what happens is rural people, if you talk about, those days are gone. Okay, you think about a rural people where there is no food, no roti, makan, kapada, all are gone. Now there is a lot of growth happened in these areas.
Right.
Thanks to all the what our government has done in the 75 years or something. I'm not only talking about India as a country, but globally.
Right.
There is some NGOs and everyone is working on it. But what happens is nowadays, what is the rural clusters require? They require a vibrant jobs. They require people to get into that. So I'm actually thinking something like in industry 4.0. I think you also should understand this. You get a good white collar people. Everyone studies engineering. What happens to blue collar workers?
Right.
Okay, drivers, people who is doing a driver, they also make their children to study economics and study engineering to get into a white collar job because they have witnessed it.
They have seen that struggle.
Struggle, right? So for that people, you need to have skills. Okay, there is still a need for them. Instead of that becoming hard jobs, you have to create a career.
Right.
Okay, so that is my another interest.
All right.
That's where I am trying to work now. I'm not working with any NGOs or governments because the moment you put NGO or government or something, some or other government changes and then you still put it as a some development case or something or something. I don't want to get in there.
Right.
But as an individual, if at least I can create 50, 60 people on my own, I'm happy. That's where my pursuit of happiness is.
Sure. What else are your other interests apart from these?
My other interest is I basically watch all the sports, particularly cricket and football. I watch them because to learn and to understand more about the geography and other things of the countries. Like when I think first time when I was watching cricket matches in New Zealand, I learned there was an natural heaters. Okay, and how the springs comes of a hot water.
So you love traveling as well.
I love traveling.
Yeah.
But now I stopped it.
All right. What are your future plans, and what do you envisage for for India as a country?
So my future plans, if you ask me, I want to contribute as much as possible
To the society.
to the government as well as to society. Government, because if I grow professionally, I can make more taxes and everything.
Okay.
If I want to contribute to the society by giving some of my knowledge, what I have, and try to generate some good people, at least moral hazard people to them. That's what.
All right. What are the pointers that you would give for the government to enhance the IT sector?
See, as I said, government is an institution, and the IT sector or any other sector like pharma, IT, or most of these sectors, it always works with 4 I's framework. The first is infrastructure, second is incentives, the third is become institutions, and fourth I is investments. If you create this climate, I think any sector will grow.
Right. But there are so many bottlenecks that the government faces.
Yeah, that's what I said, right? The government faces bottlenecks because of many things. The first is basically
Policy
the,
and decision making.
yeah, there are different agents in the system, right? So the agents become in bureaucrats, or the agents
You
become
can't do away with that.
no, the agents might be the contractors, or the agents might be the uh, politicians, whatever it may be. So everyone wants to maximize their interest.
Right.
So if you can actually curtail that maximization,
Very true.
and
So it also leads to zero corruption
yeah.
to a large
No,
extent.
zero corruption is an Ethiopian movie.
Which is not possible, but
Which
at
is
least reduce
minimization.
corruption. Yeah, yeah.
Minimization of these things are basically which is required.
All right. It was wonderful talking to you,
Thank you very much.
Venugopal. Thank you for enlightening us.
Yeah.
Thank you for being our guest today, and thanks for your valuable tips to our students. Thank you once again.
Thank you. Bye.